All right, welcome everybody to our first the virtual roundtable. I actually kind of stole this idea from one of our good friends from Asian Investors Network and Sam. So if you guys aren't aware of that, that's one of our buddies. He has a Facebook group that does real estate and other investments. So go ahead and join that. And so I'm so smart at stealing people's ideas that I brought some of his guests over. So today we're actually trying something new. So for those who aren't really familiar with me or with SARE, is that I'm your official social media butterfly. I just like to make friends. I'm not an expert in anything. I just seem to know a lot of really, really cool and smart people. And so I bring them all along and then ask them to help us out. And so today is a new format that we're trying out because usually we're doing our bi-weekly SARE classes and we bring in one guest speaker to do a whole presentation. But I wanted to try something new where it's more interactive, where we do less talking and we hear from you. So today we're doing our very first virtual roundtable. And if you guys like this, please give us some feedback on how we can improve it. And if this is good, I can do a little bit more next time. For this one, we're not putting on Facebook Live because I'm a little tech illiterate without Nelson. Come on, he's like the engineer. I'm like the humanities major. So I'm just going to record this and put this up on YouTube later on for those who are missing out. And so I'm going to do a couple of ground rules for everyone, is that because we do expect a really large crowd and I can't get everyone to go up and talk. So what I'm going to do is ask you guys to drop questions into your chat. And then our moderator for today, Jessie, she's going to be the one that's going to pick out the questions and then ask our panel or help answer. I'm not the expert, so I'm really going to be lurking for the rest of tonight and just kind of steal all your information and then help myself plan what our future investments might look like. And that's kind of the goal I want for today for everyone that's joining us. You might be more experienced with long-term rentals or just in your backyard, but today our speakers, they operate multiple Airbnbs, whether it's near them or outside. They do corporate housing, and some of them are even doing it from out of state. So let's take this opportunity to ask as many questions as you can. Yes, Erwin, take notes, everyone, take notes. And just go ahead and just ask more and more questions and just network. And it's only an hour long, but our members are here throughout SARE. You can go ahead and ask more questions later on and connect with them separately. So with that said, I'm going to turn the tables over to Jessie to take over for the rest of the night. Thank you everyone for stopping by.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Annie. I just want to first thank SARE for having this event because you guys made it possible for us to, talk about short-term rentals. And so kind of give you my background, and then I would love if the rest of the panel could talk about their background a little bit so we can kind of figure out who wants to answer which questions. My background in STR, I started with long-term rentals 3 years ago back in school in Indiana University. And then I slowly gravitated towards different investments, whether that was flips, looking into corporate, and then also into short-term rentals. And then a year ago, I completely went with my portfolio of 80% short-term rentals and the rest being long-term corporate or commercial. And so with my short-term rental background, I manage remote Airbnbs around the country. And then I also scale my teams in different areas. So with the background of that, mine aren't like anything up to like 10 plus, but I have a lot of background as far as about 1 a month output for my Airbnbs. Yeah, Aaron, do you want to talk next about your Airbnbs?
Yeah, so I started doing short-term rentals in 2020. So I started off, I'm doing arbitrage, so it started really early. I'd say February 2020 was my first official live on my first unit, which was a duplex, and pretty much grew to 7 units over the span of the whole pandemic. And from there, just kind of expanding. So that's my focus, is pretty much short term, trying to get into diversify into maybe something like mid long term, and then corporate. So a little bit of what you're doing, but cash flow is better in short term.
Okay. Kaiwa, do you want to go next?
I'm not in short-term rentals right now.
Oh.
I was
You
in
just
here.
pinned to the front.
What's that? Oh,
Oh,
did
you
I?
were just pinned to the front, so I was like, oh, he might be in short-term rentals too.
Yeah, I'm not in short-term rentals yet. Considering that's what I'm in here. Try to pick your
Perfect.
brain.
Yeah,
and
this is the right
learn
place.
more from you guys.
Okay, awesome. And then Daya, I see that in your background, it says Airbnb professional. Do you want to talk a little more about that as well?
Oh, yeah, that's the Facebook group. It has about 40,000 members. I own the group, and then my background is chemical engineering and biochemistry, and then I went to law school. I practiced patent litigation for about 5 years. Did not enjoy to 9 to 9 job, or sometimes 9 to midnight job. So I really wanted to do real estate investing. I love traveling. I love design. I have some fashion background as well. So I just really loved everything about short-term rentals because I love traveling and design and marketing and all this stuff. And so I started with a house hack in Austin, Texas, and eventually scaled to 9 short-term rentals that I own. I don't really do rental arbitrage. I don't really manage. So I own those, and then I sold some last year because it was a seller's market. I sold some, and then I bought some multifamilies to do short-term rentals and monthly rentals. And then as of this week, we bought a hotel that's 48 keys in the Ozarks, which is a huge step from just doing onesies and twosies. It's a little scary. We do have amazing syndicators who are hotel syndicators that are really excited about our deal. So that makes us a lot more confident in where we're going and whatnot. So that's really my background. So I think that's everything. Yeah. And my short-term rentals are in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and our hotel is in the Ozarks in Arkansas.
Awesome. Is there anyone else in here that has any short-term rentals?
We've got way over here in Atlanta.
Hey guys, yeah. So we started short-term rentals. I work with a couple of partners here in Atlanta. We as a group own about probably 35 different properties and started short-term rentals this past year, probably, yeah, almost a year ago at this point. Initially, we started because we were able to get a distressed property, and we figured, hey, why the hell not? Like, let's give it a test. And if it doesn't work out, we can always, go back to long-term. And surprisingly, for it being a small house, 2-2 in the middle of like nowhere, Atlanta, it actually performed much, much better than, any of our long-term rentals. So from there, our group started buying houses around, the downtown area. And we now have about 5 properties and are looking into kind of arbitrage models as well around the Atlanta area. And this year we're looking forward to growing, other parts of Georgia, as well as, other parts of the country. So.
Perfect. Okay, awesome. So what I can do first is I have a couple questions that were sent to me before this, so I can answer those, and then kind of if anyone in the panel wants to touch base with it, we can do that as well. So the first question I had was which markets are like better for short-term rentals, and which country or which states have the higher returns. So far from my experience, anywhere that has been more for corporate renting and like commercial and growing into more of the multifamily unit areas have performed very well. As far as people traveling for vacation and corporate in larger cities, that has been kind of difficult for me to find any higher returns. So far I've been looking into smaller cities that have been growing with, Amazon distribution centers or corporate distribution centers, because that so far has been really hotspots. So does anyone else have any other places that they think as well have been hotspots for Airbnbs?
I think it just depends, Jesse. So I'm a big factor on customer avatar. So, like targeting, I look at the map and pretty much, data, and then go by, I use everything that you would use in a traditional sense, log score, look at the map, and then I go a little bit deeper and to figure out who my core customer is. So if it's a corporate or a business traveler, or is it gonna be like a nurse or something like that? Then I go and base that data, and then I try to find something that's in that local market. So I'll give you an example. I have one, I started in Long Beach. There's 5 hospitals in Long Beach. I specifically target Long Beach just for that, because I knew there was 5 hospitals there, and I knew worst case scenario, if anything happened, if I needed to go long term, I could always fall back on 2 nurses. I could pivot, but I'm doing actually really good in a small city like Burbank here in LA, and I'm outperforming the hotels in Burbank. So, it comes down to design, comes down to who, how you target your listing, and pretty much those are, the factors I've seen. And you can make money pretty much almost in any market. It's just how you're going to target those clientele.
I think like a really important thing too, on top of that, is how you market your Airbnb listing, because majority of the ones that I've seen are, if you're very honest about your listing and kind of lay down what everything is about, because a lot of these people, when they look at listings, when the pictures look a little more upscale than they are in person, that has built a lot of issues for people who want to come back to your Airbnb. So a really important thing is that wherever your Airbnb is, to just being honest with your listing and having, all the different parts, whether that be, your communication skills, your property management skills, that has really been an impact as far as having those additional bookings every week.
Yeah, I just really want to quickly add that I think that you can make it very similar to Erwin, that you can make money pretty much in a lot of different towns and different investment strategies, even within short-term rentals, whether that's corporate rentals, whether that's vacation rentals, whether that is in urban areas, whether that's in mountain destinations, ski destinations, beach resorts. And my personal philosophy has always been diversifying. And so I don't personally like to focus on one specific market. I also don't like to focus on markets that everyone else is investing in. So I know a lot of people are going in certain short-term rental towns I'm not going to speak of, but there's just a lot of hype around those towns. And actually, because of all the hype, and maybe at the beginning, the returns were really good, but currently their returns are not so good anymore, just because of the real estate appreciation trends in that town. So because of that, I like to invest in towns that not everyone else is already flocking to. If it's on the list of hottest short-term rental towns to invest in, I probably won't invest there. And so that's just my personal philosophy. Everyone has a different way, and you'll hear everyone have different philosophies in short-term rentals, but that's just my thing. Right now our hotel is in a town where all the hotels are super, super dated. And from my short-term rental experience, when I had the most success is when my short-term rental is absolutely beautiful and everyone else's was not as beautiful. When I first invested in that market, everyone else has cell phone photos or really not so great copywriting or whatever. And I was the only one that really spent a lot of time writing the copy, studying what the search engine algorithms are for Airbnb, and really understanding photography. So I'm applying that same concept to the hotel. So here, no one's in the town that we're investing our hotel, we bought our hotel in, no one really knows dynamic pricing. They have a book. I've never seen anything like it. They have a book of this is the price that they have for weekends. This is the price they have for weekdays. They have physical keys. it has, if found, please mail back to this address. It's very, very old school. So when I see stuff like that, and they don't even understand booking.com, they don't take bookings on booking.com, they have an account that they never log on to. The front desk person told me that the guests will walk in sometimes before they even knew that they had a booking. So it's just this kind of stuff excites me. It might scare a lot of people, it excites me because that means I'm not going to have any competition. And that's really, whether short-term rentals or hotels, that's what I like.
Thank you so much for talking about that. Yeah, I definitely agree too. Like one of my highest performing Airbnbs is in the middle of Indiana in a city called Bloomington, where the main drive of that is the Indiana University students. And it's a very different town compared to most like Las Vegas and Florida. And even in those small towns, there's a lot of demand when it comes to Airbnbs. So it really depends on how you list, and then finding those non-hotspot areas as well that can also perform just as well as the hotspot ones.
Yeah, I agree. With larger cities, especially the ones that everyone's probably, thinking about, like a destination city or something, prices have definitely gone up, and you also have to worry about, stricter regulations because there's more issues. So if you are able to, find a secondary market, you can most likely probably earn about the same amount in terms of nightly rate, but you would pay less for that building, and you would probably get, the same type of people. So like one example is, like everybody knows like Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and everyone wants to invest there. So, it's now obviously very crowded and the prices are super high, but there's obviously other parts of, the Appalachian Trail and the mountains that people also flock to. And we've definitely seen, like patterns like that, especially during COVID, where people just want to, just go somewhere, live a month, and then go somewhere else and live a month. So there's, a lot of different areas that one can look at that may not be like super obvious at first. But you also want to consider, the types of people that you might want to, have in your STR, because again, first thing you think about is probably those vacation trucks. Erwin had mentioned, places around hospitals. Well, if you have a family member that's maybe doing cancer treatments or something, you probably do want to find a place nearby, and that might be like a month-long thing. So there's, just a lot of different profiles that you can think about when investing.
Thank you so much, Wei. So we can go on to the next question that a lot of people have been asking too, is that what do guests like in Airbnbs, and how has this affected your own Airbnbs? From my perspective, giving recommendations to your guests has been a really important part for my performance, as well as telling them different, restaurants, vacation areas, or even just sightseeing, or even how to get from the airport to the hotel or anything like that. So I think that's been a really important part as far as making the guests feel like they're on vacation or they're a part of that city. Another thing that I've definitely considered a lot is privacy, allowing my guests to feel like I'm right there, or allowing my guests to feel like I'm only there when they need me is really important, because sometimes the guests don't want to know that you're looking at the cameras, or you're checking in on them every single hour, or you're worried about the neighborhood. So those two would be my top things as far as what guests would like really desire. As far as amenity goes, for specific things like Wi-Fi, TV, kitchen appliances, being from like blenders to coffee makers, and then also depending on which area, like my property in Indiana, they love anything for hiking or outdoors. And then some property I own in Vegas, it's more towards like vacation stuff. So we're talking like a little bar area, or even shot glasses. So kind of gravitating towards wherever market you're in, whether that's like hiking or outdoors to, vacationing on the strip. Definitely make sure you're focusing in on that kind of category. Does anyone else want to add in on that as well?
I think you covered it. It's pretty standard, and as far as amenities, it's gonna be like whatever you would find in a typical home, right? But there are I think a lot of people don't realize this when they start is the potential to upsell a lot of this stuff. So like say a couple's coming and they book your place and they're coming in for an anniversary. So they're already telling you they're coming in town for an anniversary. What can you upsell them on? You can upsell them on a private dinner, like a private chef, right? You can upsell them on an early check-in, upsell them on a late checkout. You can, whatever you can think of, you can upsell pretty much to these people. And on top of that, if you have Toro, upsell them on the Toro because they're coming from the airport and they're like, hey, I need to rent a car. And you say, oh yeah, by the way, I have Toro. You want to rent it from me? So there's a lot of ways you can. Don't think as like STR being one specific income revenue when it's actually multifaceted income. It's just when you're first starting, you're just concentrating on getting down the process. But once you got down the process, start looking at how you can include some of these things that guests are going to tell you. And that's when you'll see a trend by your guests asking you certain things like, oh, hey, what's the hottest restaurant? And then you'll say, oh, this restaurant over here. I actually work out a discount with this restaurant for 20%. And you take 10% and then you give your guests 10% discount. So things like that, I think are really good.
So I think it kind of depends on the market and the target demographic, which I think Jesse kind of already touched on, but I just want to really highlight that fact. So when I invest in a new market, I not only analyze the property, I analyze the competitors, but I also analyze which amenities will be really popular for that given market and that target demographic. So beach destinations typically, and and I'm speaking with a very broad brushstroke, but typically for beach destinations, pools and hot tubs are very popular. And then beach towels, beach lounge chairs, etc. Those, bikes, if you want to provide that, that might be popular as well. And if it's a ski destination or something mountainy, fires are really popular, whether it's an electric fireplace, whether it's wood, if you're comfortable with that, at all, or outdoor fire pit. Any sort of fire feature is really popular for these mountain destinations, just because that's what people love when they go glamping, right? They love that cabin feel. They love that fire pit, gathering around the fire pit. They can imagine themselves around this fire pit. And in fact, that's a lot of the top Airbnb listings in mountain destinations. They might have a picture of fire as their lead photo, which is their first photo. So when I'm analyzing short-term rentals, I kind of look at what the top 8 short-term rentals are really providing in their listing, and I jot that down. I kind of jot, okay, so 6 of these in Austin, Texas, they have pools. Okay, so they are making this much money, and the people without pools, they're making this much money. So now I know if I add a pool, this is my ROI on having a pool. So I'm very data focused. So it's always what the data says. So I don't have to guess which amenities will be really popular with guests.
Yeah, and
go ahead.
thanks. Yeah, so for us, one easy money maker for us is having a fenced-in yard and allowing pets at our properties. So, one of the trends we noticed was that, a lot of people want to travel, and, it's hard finding a hotel that will allow, multiple pets. So if you're going somewhere to a different city or just visiting family, like a lot of people want to bring their pets. So that's been one of the very consistent things that we have upcharge on simply by having a fenced-in yard and welcoming their pets.
I find that after changing my listings to pets, there's been a lot of inquiries, but then occasionally I'll have the ones that will be like, oh, if you have a pet, I'm not staying here. So it really depends on where you are sometimes, but especially for places where there's hiking involved and different outdoor events, all those people want pets and they're always bringing them in. So having those amenities for the pets too really helps boost the Airbnb. I had a friend who owns a listing in Joshua Tree, And in Joshua Tree, there's a lot of hiking, a lot of outdoor events, and having so many amenities like foam rollers, yoga mats, to then like outdoor gear for their dogs. When I was looking at their listing, they were fully booked up for like 3 months straight. So just like small things like that, it really does set you apart from your competitors. Yeah. Okay. So the next question, now we can finally go to the chat a little more, is would you pay more for a property if short-term rental cash flow is better? For me personally, I really look at the house when it comes to different parts. So can I do this long-term? Is this a backup as a long-term? Can I lease this to corporate? And then, short-term being the ultimate goal. But when it comes to paying more for a property, typically, there are a lot of deals out there these days. So the market is pretty hot. So there's a lot of different options. So when it comes to paying more, I will try my best not to for a short-term rental. But if I see it as an opportunity in an area where there's not a lot of short-term rental properties, then I would definitely consider paying more, just because if it's an unsaturated market, then that's such an opportunity to get into.
Because we only have 30 minutes left, let's talk more about the logistics. There's so many questions in here. I'm seeing people asking about the lending portion and how you guys are setting it up, how are you operating, and how you guys are scaling up. So let's move toward the second half of the question. There's a great one about people were asking about setup. So I'm gonna bring in Jason. I haven't heard from him tonight. So I saw that you are in multiple cities. So let's hear from you on how you are setting yours up in multiple cities in multiple states, and whether you're using a company or you're doing it yourself.
Hi, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hi. Yeah, so I do have properties kind of all over the nation. I have one locally in Long Beach, which is actually being managed by Erwin. So shout out to Erwin. Yay. So that's one way I'm trying to operate, bringing in a co-host, that I just pay a percentage to. I also have a property in Big Bear that I am self-managing. So I just connect with, cleaners and any handyman people if I need to get things done. But pretty much that is automated. And then I have properties in Indianapolis. I actually went out there summer to kind of set up my team. So I have one person that is kind of managing all the cleaners and all the vendors that's needed for that property. So but pretty much for all the properties during setup, I would go to the property, spend a weekend, stage the furniture, hang the artwork, and then set up all the systems there, and then let my team run with it.
Yeah, adding on to kind of what Jason was saying about it, it's kind of very similar to what I do, where I will go out there to tour a couple properties, or I'll have someone who's in that city look at the properties. And then on the closing day of, that's where I then order all the things to the Airbnb. And then I'll fly out there. And then while I'm getting all the furniture, I then meet with the cleaners, the handymans, interview with different people that can run the Airbnb. And then once that's completed and I have a structure, then I move on to the next project. So that way, once that flows through, then I just continue that. And then when I have that team established in that city, then they know exactly what to do for the next project. So I don't have to be there anymore.
And so going back to Gary's question on the technical part, now that you've found your person to do the cleaning and the handyman work, how are you guys streamlining it so that the bookings are all automated, the cleaners know how to come? Who wants to talk about that? I want to hear the technology that you guys. All right, Stephanie, come on in.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, awesome. So I have 4 short-term rentals. I just put an offer down on my 5th one. I'm in California and I remotely manage, self-manage all the properties. So as far as getting the cleaners, the handyman, everything automated, I'll give you an example. One of my properties with my cleaners, this one's in Tennessee. They use Resort Clean. They're like a middle-sized cleaning company. They also do maintenance, but With that one, my property management software links to theirs. So every time I have a booking, it automatically goes over there, and then I'll get an email saying it's confirmed. For my iSIMs are, so they just kind of come in between to clean. So, and they just let me everybody else uses it, but it's something that the cleaners have to have themselves, and it's free. It costs them, but it's free for the owners if they happen to have it.
So in terms of property management software, I think the most popular is OwnerRez and Hostfully. Cloudbed's a little more popular if you're operating hotels and short-term rentals at the same time. But so it just kind of really depends on what your needs are, which booking platforms you really want to use, which property management company, what they're really familiar with. And then also, of course, like Stephanie mentioned, what your cleaning company is really familiar with. So I know a lot of cleaners in larger cities use Turnover B&B. But cleaners in smaller towns do not know anything about Turnover B&B. So it might be great until you meet a cleaner in the small town, and they are very, ancient in their technologies. And then in terms of locks, there's all sorts of different smart locks. There could be a whole hour conversation, so I won't go into the details, but the most popular are August and Schlage brands. Different types of integrations and whatnot, and then how the smart log integrates with the property management software, with the booking platform, and then how the property management software integrates with the pricing automation, how the property management software integrates with automated messaging, and all sorts of different integrations that could be a very long discussion. So, but those are the most popular brands: Hostfully, OwnerRez, I hope I'm not missing any. Cloudbeds, Beds24 are some of the more popular ones that I've seen a lot of hosts use.
So I'm very techy. As background was, I was a former engineer for about 20 years, and spent most of my career. So I use Hospitable, which was formerly known as Smart B&B, for messaging. So that'll get your Airbnb, your VRBO, any other your booking.com messages coming in from the guests, going out to the guests. It'll even do direct booking messages for you. I use OwnerRez for property management. So just like Dia said, it's one of the probably most known one out there on the market. It even does property management. You can upcharge, you can charge an owner like 20%, 50%, whatever you want. It's an extra paid feature in OwnerRez. For locks, it's a whole conversation. You can get lost in locks and cameras. So I've gone through Vivint. I do not recommend Vivint at all. Just for once you get to scale, like Jesse and Dana and even Jason, Stephanie, when you start using virtual assistants overseas, some of these platforms aren't really good for that type of setup. So Vivint's one of those because they're only app-based, and being app-based, they tie it down to you can only use the app if you're in the US. So they would have to jump onto a VPN to use the app, and then they would have to install it on their phone. So it's like we literally have to walk somebody through on how to install an app, and it's not fun. So I'll keep it at that. It's a long conversation, but any of us can help you out with that.
So
I
it
find
sounds like
that
you guys got the techie part down, but real estate is still a very human business. So how are you guys interacting with guests that are having problems? So say like the internet goes off or something. How are you guys working that within your tech system?
so a lot of my check in, check out are all automated, but when it comes to problems, I try to keep it as real as possible because at the end of the day, bots can only do so much. And when they are frustrated, as we all are with like customer service bots, I don't want to ever upset the guests. So when it comes to that, I always have someone step in and discuss with them or connect them with my handyman or someone on standby. So that way the guests feel like they're being heard. Because we can only do so much when it comes to automation because majority of my houses, they're all automated, same locks, same cameras, all the tech is all around the same. So when it comes to the human part, I try as much as helping them when there's an issue. So that's like the very much human part of Airbnb. But other than that, the rest is all automated.
And so far as if I'm understanding correctly, it sounds like everyone is self-operating your Airbnbs right now. Are any of you guys working with companies or to set up your Airbnb? Because say, for example, some people might be like, oh, I don't know how to buy all the furniture or set it up, or I don't want to do it. Are you guys working with something like that or partnering? How are you guys building your portfolio for your short-term rentals?
So for my Airbnbs, I'm actually that person who I work with wholesale distributors. I'm also the property manager. And then I also can help someone who knows nothing about Airbnb and build it to where they get their first one out. So when it comes to that part, I can't really say much as far as I can be that person for you, but when it comes to having others, I just do that entire section.
I just started outsourcing, so I can really speak to this. So I scaled to 9 and it was a headache to self-manage everything. Especially because I run a very large Facebook group and I'm trying to get into commercial real estate. So, and I travel, those of you guys who are Facebook friends with me see that I'm traveling 24/7. So it was getting to quite a breaking point for me. And so I really had to outsource. And so I started looking into property management companies. So it's a hybrid right now of local co-hosts that I met through Airbnb Professional Hosts, which is the Facebook group that I own. And then I also have virtual assistants as well now. And then I also have a personal assistant helping me be there in person to manage some of the short-term rental setups right now. So this is the only reason why I'm able to sip tea with you guys tonight as a living human being, because right now there's about 5 different fires going on right now. 3 of them are short-term rental related. So it's been a challenge in learning how to scale, but it's definitely a lot of growing pains, a lot of just stuff in between. But I'm finally outsourcing and not doing my personal setups. I used to even offer setups, and then I realized I can't do it anymore. So I do have interior designers and whatnot that I'm considering using for the next time. I do like to design, so it's really hard to let me let that part go. So.
Yeah, well, so we're kind of in the same boat. I was pretty adamant from the get-go that we try to systemize anything and everything. So if you wanted to get into STRs and you think you're going to do more than 2 or 3, definitely try to get a system in place, from day one. I even told my partners, like with the first one, like, hey, let's try to, even though it's in the same city, like let's try to not go there like as often as possible, right? If there's issues, just try to manage it remotely or see if, our cleaners or runners can do stuff like that. So right now we do have 5 STRs and we're currently in the process of trying to hire designers as well. That has honestly been one of the largest pain points between the partnership. Between the 3 partners, we have different styles and tastes, and just trying to furnish even one place can take like much longer than it should. So, the goal is for us to scale up to, hopefully 40 more this year. But to do that, I think we definitely need, reliable designers that can just go in and out, hopefully within 2 weeks, so that, we can kind of focus on our core of trying to grow the number of places and just have those things kind of be systemized and just ready to go every time.
So Jesse and Wei, you both are helping investors with getting their Airbnb set up. Can you talk a little bit more about like the cost involved? Like starting out, like what's our budget? Should if it's just for interior designing, or we have to pay for something for separate for furniture or paint or repairs or something? Can you let us know a little bit about that?
Right.
From
Do you want to start with, or
inspector's point of view, from the investor's point of view, on the
Oh.
setup costs involved with work while working with an Airbnb company.
perfect? Go ahead.
Oh, no, ladies first.
Oh, I was gonna say what I can do that'll make it easier too is that I'll type out the numbers, kind of like my range, so that way everyone can just take a look at the numbers, because it's kind of hard to explain when it comes to different beds, because majority of my bed counts in different cities are all different. So I'm gonna write down everything in the chat for you guys.
So for us, we typically, I guess, depending on the level of Airbnbs a person wants, we typically average, or I'll tell the clients it averages out to be maybe, $5,000 to $8,000 per room. So it's not that we would spend $5,000 in just the bedroom, but if you have like a 2-bedroom house that you want to Airbnb, we're looking at somewhere around, like $10,000 to $16,000 in furnishings. So, you can do the math for 3 or 4 bedrooms or even larger homes.
This range includes the furniture and the design and the work involved, like the hiring people to move the things in and out.
Yeah.
So you said around 8,000 per room.
Yeah, 5 to 8, depending on the level of furnishings you would like.
Got it. And how about the timing on, say, from closing to actually getting this live and going? Usually, how long does it take for a team to get something like this set up?
So I think probably Jesse probably has a better idea if they were to manage it manually. But for us, honestly, it could be anywhere be from like 2 weeks. We've done it in 2 weeks up to like 6 weeks. So it kind of depends.
For me, I've seen a month plus, and I've seen some come out in 3 days thanks to Amazon 1-day delivery. So it really depends. So I would say that typical range for an Airbnb from start to finish after closing would be 3 to 4 weeks, because that gives you enough time to first put on all the furniture. And while you're putting on the furniture, you can go interview your handyman, your property manager, and all your different teams. And then, give that 1 week buffer to make any touch-ups, whether that's handyman work or retouch up the paint, and then, get the listing out. Typically, once you have everything instilled, the listing can take a day or 2. And then depending on which property area you're in, I usually get instant bookings right after I launch the house. So I would say give it a month and you'll be able to release one.
I just want to really add that if you're investing in small towns, add 1 month, because logistics are crazy in small towns, and Amazon delivers in 2 weeks sometimes and goes missing during transit, and Wi-Fi takes 3 weeks, 4 weeks for someone to come out, and just a lot of little logistics. Handymen are really hard to find, they quit on you. So just like when you're investing in a small market, which I love, I have a property I bought for $190K. The projected revenue is going to be $50K. So it beats pretty much any market out there. But guess what? It takes me 3 weeks to get Wi-Fi. So it takes a lot longer to set up in small towns.
I just wanted to add to that too. On the other side, one of the strategies I used in the beginning was I would pay the premium. So I would go out right after closing, and I would get properties up and running within 5 days, just because I had to go back to my W-2, which I still work, because I didn't have enough leave time. So I would pre-plan every single thing I could right after closing appointments. And I would literally pack bags of Ring cameras, Slage locks, anything I could gather beforehand, and make my time as efficient as possible. One example in Texas, in Crystal Beach, where I am, Costco, Home Depot, it's like an 1.5 hour drive from the beach. So I rented a U-Haul for 3 days and just went nuts shopping for the first 2 to 3 days. and then just spent the rest of the time with a couple of other people setting up. So it can be done in a crunch, but I do think if you go the route of paying the premium up front to have more of a turnkey property, for someone with less time but a little bit more cash on hand, it might be easier to do it that way too, depending on your strategy.
Love it. All right, there's a lot of finance questions in here right now at this time that I'm seeing. So I'm gonna need my resident lender friend, Jason, and to ask some questions on this. So a lot of people are asking in here, how are you guys financing the purchases, or are you just doing rental arbitrage? So what's your finance strategy on buying these and buying more? And what kind of loans can people use to purchase these?
I actually personally can't speak about STR loans because that's not a product that we offer. We only do investment
He
properties.
does.
But in terms of financing, for my own portfolio, I've utilized my business credit card to do the furnishings. I've also used like my credit card to buy like that whole property as well. So that's one way. In terms of scaling, like for me, I still have a W-2, so I kind of use that as a capital just for my down payment. So I just do, I'm not very creative when it comes to these financing. I just put 20% to acquire the property, furnish it with my credit card, and have it live right away. That's my very boring strategy when it comes to setting up units.
Starting with long-term conventional loan, 20, 15 to 20% down.
Yes.
That type of a loan.
Yeah.
Anyone using like your second homes or vacation home? There you go, Stephanie, Jesse, and Dia. So you can only buy a couple of those. But then once you want to get a little bit more, so actually I'm going to bring Simi on here if I can ask Simi a couple questions. Let me on because I know he does do loans on short term. So
I do, yeah. Thanks, I appreciate it, Annie. So yeah, I'm a commercial LO. I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia, but a fund nationwide. So I do everything from residential to commercial, anything investment related. I do that is inclusive of new construction. But for the purposes of this discussion, so I fund STRs nationwide, and some of you may be familiar with the term DSCR. So those are the type of loans that we offer. It's called debt service coverage ratio. Basically, in a nutshell, it means asset-based lending. So we don't look at tax returns. We don't look at proof of income. We don't look at W-2. We really underwrite the asset, and we underwrite the rental income to cover your monthly expenses, which are going to be taxes, insurance, HOA, and any flood insurance, depending where you're at. So a lot of my investors are extremely wealthy, but they can't show any money in their tax returns, right? So if they can't go to a conventional bank that Jason's used to going to and putting 20% down because they don't qualify for traditional financing. So that's when we come into play. And all of our loans are considered private business loans. So we don't look at DTI. Our loans never get reported to the credit bureaus. So it won't affect your DTI. With traditional banks, I think you're limited to about 10 investment properties per individual. With us, you can have 1,000. We don't care. As long as you have good credit, as long as you have the down payment for the property and the property cash flows and covers the debt, then that's all we care about. So my best program right now, and I'll put my information in the chat box, is if you have a 690 plus FICO, we can go to 85% leverage on an STR, which is really, really strong because prior to that was about 80%. So yeah, and it's 30-year fixed. We 99% of our loans are in an entity, and that can be an LLC, S Corp, C Corp, whatever entity you have. And rate ranges right now, rates are just went up and starting to go back up. And we'll go back up later on this year, but I'm quoting anywhere right now from high 4s to low 5s fixed. And that's it. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll put my info in the chat box.
Going back to that, how are you getting the rental amount if it's a short term?
So there's a few ways. If there's historical data, an existing STR, we look at that. If there's existing data, we'll look at that. If there's no data, then we will rely on you and or your agent to supply us with comps. and that can be from airdna.com, and that can be from other sites. At the end of the day, all we care about is comps, right? So however you pull it and you can justify it to us, we're fine with that.
I think I've used conventional loans, secondary home loans. I've used hard money loans. I've negotiated seller financing. I've negotiated seller financing as a second lien position, which means that you don't put any money out of pocket because they are holding the down payment as the second lien. We bought our hotel owner finance because the financials were really rocky. So there's all sorts of different ways. You can also assume a loan, right? There's a lot of different ways to, and then also I know that a lot of my colleagues actually just use other people who are just private lenders, like they just use other people's self-directed IRAs. There's so many different ways to get a deal funded. If the deal's good, someone's going to finance it. So I don't really worry about the financing so much. But there's a lot of ways that you can negotiate to structure the deal.
Yeah, but I'll piggyback on that a little bit. I mean, you're very experienced, so you have the knowledge and the capability to, creative finance. But for people that are starting out, if you want to get a few deals under your belt, you probably want to go the DSCR route. And or if you qualify for traditional banking, that's great. Get one or two deals under your table, and then once you're familiar with being an owner operator, then you can probably branch into some sort of more creative financing for your future deals.
Absolutely.
I put my info in the chat box, so feel free to reach out to me. Go to my website. You can email me. I'll answer any questions that you have. And I'll be at the conference too here in Atlanta.
We're just in luck. I love that we have so many of our Atlanta friends coming up and meeting us up first and here. So super excited. All right. Other questions are about the acquisition. So when you guys are looking at your properties, how do you determine that the numbers will work for you for your short-term rentals? Like, are you guys using some kind of a calculator or some kind of rule, say like, oh, this could be worth 1.2 times amount of the average LTR or something? Like, do you have rules of thumb as you're running through your numbers?
I'll go. So when I first started, I used AirDNA, but I used going with AirDNA or realizing that it's a very basic data set and it's not 100% accurate. So I just based it off of, what I could see in the market, and then going on to Airbnb, kind of seeing, what the demands are on certain days. Now more so what I what I previously said too is like, knowing that market is really key, and knowing how you're gonna target those type of customers that are gonna come in to that market. So that's a lot more research, and it does take a lot more time, but you're pretty much guaranteeing your rate. And I'd say you could probably, worst case scenario, do a 3x off of whatever.
And how important is the property values going up? Like, how important is that to you when you're doing your numbers? Like, are you more on the cash flow, or like, oh, if this property goes up in a lot more later on? Jason?
I think I'll let Thea and Jason or Jesse handle that.
I'm greedy. I like everything, but definitely more on the cash flow right now, just because no one's a profit, but just based on the market condition right now, I just think that in case the market softens, I'll rather just have the cash flow. So that's me, but I definitely look at appreciation as well. And I am a lot more conservative than most people are. I'm a lot maybe greedier. I don't like to pay above asking price. I try to find my own deals off market. But I definitely like both appreciation and cash flow. But if I had to pick one right now, given the market condition, I recommend everyone to consider cash flow, just because if you're forced to sell at all, like if you're just, I just can't, it just, and whenever there's a market downturn, it just makes a little more sense.
I go for cash flow just because if I'm going to hold on to the property, if values go up and down, as long as I'm not trying to sell it and I'm still making money with the cash flow, then I'm good. So, but appreciation is just a byproduct if it's a plus more than anything else. But I'll always look for cash flow and make a decision mostly on that.
Yeah, cash flow for us as well. Though I will say we're starting to see a trend where, owners are trying to sell houses based on the profits they're making. So there's kind of like this forced appreciation. There's, saying, oh, this house made 120K, like, so it's now worth this. Like, so they're trying to like offload their houses to other STR owners.
It's really tricky too when they put the what they're projecting or what they made previous years. I always tell people don't get so caught up with what the property made before, because you have no idea how it was managed. So as long as the market has the demand for it, you can turn that number, you can get way more profits if you just manage it right.
Great. And then one more question, because otherwise we're going to be running low on time. Talking about scaling up, I want to hear more about what's your next plans on scaling up. Are you partnering, or what are something special that you're going to be trying next?
So for me, for scaling, this is the year that I really want to scale to, double digits, because I'm right at 9. So I want to hit up about that. My thing is that I've partnered with furniture wholesalers and different people who bring my Airbnb together, so that when I invest with people, my investment startup fee is much, much lower than most of my competitors. So for scaling with that, I find that by having a lower cost, I'm able to target more investors that want to be on my project. So that's kind of where I'm going. And then, making more automated systems, and then working on different investment deals, whether that be Airbnb arbitrage, or working with different investors that want to get into Airbnb.
Yeah, for us, we're trying to pretty much jumped a lot this year as well. So this past year, a lot of growing pains and learns. And we've been trying to, we hired a VA to kind of help with the human aspect of it, and, perfecting our, automated messages, locks, and all that stuff. So this year, I think we're gonna, there are some houses that we're looking to co-own, but for speed, I think we're gonna focus a lot on arbitrage.
I agree. I have a mix of both arbitrage owning and also partnering. And I'm getting to the point where I'm running out of money. So I'm probably going to start picking up more arbitrage, or partnering with people to keep the scale going.
For those who said that they're looking for partners, what kind of partners do you guys need? Is it the money side or the brain side?
I think it's well, for me, for partners, I'm actually looking more so for like kind of like what Jesse said, for who can help me out, or who can I help out, right? So like I'll give you an example. Construction companies. So there's a bunch of construction companies in every city. What are they working on? Multifamily units. Who do they know? They know the owners of those units. Oh, what do those owners need? They need to fill the vacancies of those units. So that's one way that I am currently looking at getting that into rental arbitrage, doing it that way of expanding. Currently, what I have been doing is this peer networking, building relationships. So that's probably the fastest and easiest way to expand. Just getting out there, letting people know that, hey, I want to scale I'm looking for 20 units. I'm looking for 50 units. You'll be surprised. People will just come up to you and like, hey, I have units available. Can you help me?
As far as working with like larger apartment complexes and multifamily, a lot of landlords look for if you can just buy out their entire units and say, hey, like work with me and I'll give you a cut. That has made it much easier because all they want is the rent to be paid. So if you're able to give them like a portfolio plan of like how you want to do your Airbnb project, then and they get a smaller cut, then by all means try to do that because it's really going to scale your business to another degree.
Yeah, what can I see from you in 2022?
Did you mention, sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
so we're doing hotels really, just that's been so 2 years ago I told my significant other that I wanted to buy hotels and he laughed at me, so now it's my ex. But anyway, so I've always wanted to do hotels, short-term rentals, which is a very small version of a hotel, and I really wanted to get as much experience in understanding short-term rentals in as many markets as possible. I spend most of my year traveling around the country to understand as many short-term rental markets as possible, to talk to local operators, local property managers, local super hosts, really to understand their market a little bit better and how the things are really different in their market. So after understanding that a lot more, and after selling some of my short-term rental units and then really buying multifamilies or hotels now, we are hoping that the next step is to go into hundreds of hotel units and doing syndications and whatnot. But so we did joint venture on this last hotel deal. So we had a couple investors as a joint venture structure, but going forward, we're going to do syndications and whatnot, hopefully by the end of this year. So.
That's huge footsteps for us to follow. I love the goals. You have to think big and we'll get there step by step. All right, I'm going to give you guys one last question since we're really out of time. I want each of the panelists to think about if you have, what's one big tip for those who are considering getting into short-term rental? What is an important tip that you want to share with them, or maybe if it's a book that impacted you the most, or a YouTube channel, let us know.
I'll go first.
Go ahead.
Okay. My biggest tip, you just need to know enough to get started. You don't have to know everything. The best education you're going to get is as you do it. So don't let the fear mongering get to you. Just know enough to get started and just trust that you'll figure out the rest as you go.
So let's see, I can go next. If you're just starting out, don't find the cheapest thing you find online and try to put it in your house. The amount of time you will have to go back and either replace that thing or fix it is not worth it. Like, get something solid that's durable and go from there.
When you mean that, do you mean like the property as in don't get a fixer-upper, get like a new build or a nearly rehab place? Describe more on that part.
I guess, well, properties, if you have somebody reliable that can fix it well, like that's great as well. But I guess I mostly meant like furniture. Like, don't get the cheapest furniture you can find thinking that it looks good, but it's, really crappy.
You saying no IKEA? and then someone's like, no AliExpress cart?
Yeah.
Got it. Jason, what's your tip?
I guess my tip would be like for someone that, probably has one property and they want to scale their business, learn more about, how to operate a bigger number of units, partner up with someone who has already done it. I want to give a shout out again to Erwin because I onboarded him because I wanted to learn more from him, and that kind of like pushed me to acquire more properties or turn more of my long-term rental properties in Indy to short-term rentals. So if you are on this chat, there's a bunch of us here that you can connect with. So, if they're doing what you guys want to do, so just connect with them and learn from them.
I like that. Jason's doing, I mean, Aaron's doing all the hard work for you. Great. Yes,
Kind of
Jeff.
adding on to what Jason was saying, when I started in the real estate market, I was only 18. And for me, I didn't have any money at the time to do anything. So what it was about was partnerships and finding people who had the same vision as me. So to get to where I am today, I'm not owning 100% shares of anything. I just own a little bit of everything. And by doing that and giving other people opportunity, bringing in new ideas, it has really allowed me to grow at the scale I'm at just because I'm bringing in different people on my projects. So when you're starting, I definitely recommend, like, don't do it alone. Like, have someone else who, you know, has a different background than you and invest together, because it's much easier paying for half the bill than it is the full bill. So that's my advice.
I wowould say honestly that very similar to everyone else. Honestly, the biggest thing I see that a lot of newcomers is that it's very dangerous if you're a long-term rental investor and flipper already, and you have apply the same concepts and systems that you learned in long-term rental investing into flipping into short-term rentals, because it's a totally different strategy and totally different mindset. I know a lot of long-term rental investors who are like, oh, laminate countertops, it's fine. Like, why? It's perfectly fine. Why would I replace that? It's fine. Well, you know, if you want to get $400 a night on booking and your guest walks in and they see laminate countertops, they're not going to be very happy. They're going to ding you on value, which is one of the ratings for Airbnb. So definitely, if you are already a long-term rental investor or flipper or some sort of other real estate investor, when you're coming into the space, stay humble, because this is a very different space. It's like running a little tiny hotel. And so there's a lot more that you have to learn. If I can mention Airbnb Professional Hosts, it's a 100% free Facebook group. It has 40,000 other Airbnb hosts, and there's hundreds of posts every single day asking for what kind of locks to use, what kind of towels to use, what kind of bedding is not going to creak, what kind of sofa is the best sleeper sofa, all sorts of logistics. And it's 100% free for anyone to join. So we also review everyone's new Airbnb listings when they get published to kind of help critique and whatnot, to figure out what is the best photo to put in the front and all this stuff. So learn from other super hosts and other hosts around the USA and even around the world. And I think that's the best support that you can get, really.
Oh, I love that. So before I'm going to wrap things up, I want you guys to help me do a favor and drop your emails or contacts if the members want to connect with you, especially for those who are looking for more partners. Please drop them in there, Instagram and Facebook. And so to kind of wrap things up, this is our very first time doing a panel of this type, of just bringing in our local friends, because again, SARE, we are investor taught, investor led. I'm actually the dumb one out of all of us. I know nothing about this. I just have a lot of really good friends that I can bring together. And so if you guys like this, you know, let us know what more topics we want to do in the future, and I can set more of these up. I will be recording, I have been recording this, and I will upload this to our YouTube channel. And for those who didn't know we have one, I didn't really know either, because I just kind of troll and hang out with you guys all the time. But I will be uploading that. So I will share the link later on. And again, just a couple of announcements is that we are going to Atlanta. For those of, you know, if you didn't hear me say it like a billion times, we are going there from March 10th to the 13th for about 3.5 days. I am working on building you guys the biggest, most talented core team. There's going to be brokers and wholesalers, there's lenders, insurance, closing attorneys. Basically, we're going to be your one-stop shop to build if you want to start learning how to invest out of state. This event is going to be open to all of our friends out there. We have a wait list going on. I am working on getting a couple more spots. So if you do want to sign up, go ahead. We are bringing 60 investors, out-of-state investors over, including our local friends there, my agents. I'm expecting our numbers to hit about maybe 80. So I will be sharing our itinerary and everything out to those members in the next week or so. So until then, we're going to have more of our SERE classes every 2 weeks on Thursday nights. So join us on that. And I'm also looking for more volunteers to host more of these type of events. So if this is something you're interested in helping out and coordinating, or you guys want to do in-person meetups in your own city, hit me up. All right. I'm really planning that 2022, we're going to make SARE big. Eventually do more trips. We're going to have SARECon. So come and volunteer and help out. So Scarlett asked where we can find the Thursday classes. So these are going to be all on our event calendar. They're every other Thursday at 5 Pacific or 8 Eastern. And we will be putting the links up so you can register. It's pretty much the same link that we're using now, and you can download it as a calendar. So thank you everyone for joining. I really appreciate your time. And I want to thank all the panelists for stopping by on such a last minute notice on just something I just kind of thought of and made up on the spot. And especially Jesse for following along. I love volunteering my friends to do stuff. And I talked her into doing this. So I really appreciate this. All right. Thank you everyone. And we're going to talk to you soon. Take care. Bye
Thank you,
guys.
everyone.